Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you find yourself on the globe. The time is 11 a.m. Central European Standard Time, and it's 19 here in Brisbane, where I'm calling from. So my name is Johanna Linus. I'm currently a PhD candidate at the University of Queensland in Australia, but I've been working as a chief geoscientist in the small-scale mining division in the Ministry of Mines and Energy in Namibia. And of all the 14 years of experience in the mineral sector, 8 years I've spent it in the formalization and promotion of artisanal and small-scale miners. So today I'll be the chair for this session. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this important session on artisanal and small-scale mining, challenges and opportunities for sustainable development, held under the umbrella of the World Resources Forum 2025 conference, which is themed New Resource Strategies for a Fair and Sustainable Future. Artisanal and small-scale mining plays a vital role in the livelihoods of millions across the globe. And as we heard from Blessing Jungwe in her keynote speech on the opening day of the conference, yet it faces significant challenges. So today, we'll share insight, challenge assumptions, and co-create solutions that support both people and planet. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to a rich and engaging session. So the session is 60 minutes, and we'll have each presenter will have 7 minutes, followed by 2 minutes of clarifying questions only, and we'll add more. We'll have opportunity for additional questions at the end of the session. So our first presenter is Kundai Chikonzo from Zimbabwe, who will talk about transforming the women in the artisanal and small-scale mining sector in Zimbabwe, empowering women in multilateral drivers. So Kundai.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As Johanna has actually highlighted, the abstract is on transforming women in the ASM, in the artisanal and small-scale mining sector in Zimbabwe, ensuring that there's multilateral drivers. Next slide, we can have an introduction. Okay, the artisanal and small-scale mining sector in Zimbabwe contributes 60% of the gross domestic product, meaning that it actually provides livelihoods for thousands of people in the country. And from those 1,000 artisanal and small-scale miners who are contributing, we have got a section of women who are also doing mining. And from that, 11% are women that are already doing mining in the artisanal and small-scale sector. Hence, this sector faces a lot of numerous challenges. It mainly is on empowering these women in the ASM sector for promoting economic growth, reducing poverty. As you know, women in our African context, they are the ones who actually have the backbone of the family, and also enhancing social inclusiveness. So this presentation is going to touch on the importance of empowering the women in the ASM sector and also highlighting initiatives that are driving positive change and discussing also the multilateral drivers in supporting the women empowerment. Next slide. Why do we need to empower women? That's the first question. Why are we talking about women empowerment in the ASM sector? We are saying that they contribute, like I said, 11% of the sector are women, of the ASM sector are women, and they are contributing significantly towards the gross domestic product of the country. And if we empower women, we have reduced the poverty and we have also improved the standard of living for most of the communities, mainly the mining communities, was where they are poverty driven. And also further to this, we would also have promoted social inclusiveness by breaking down the gender barriers. There is inclusiveness in this empowerment. And lastly, we would have also enhanced the decision-making and leadership in the sector, because by empowering women, we are empowering associations within the artisanal and small-scale sector. And we are now, by empowering associations, we have also included a voice for women within the policymakers and also in the line of stakeholders. Next slide. And we have got challenges that women face. There is need for us to highlight these challenges. And the challenge is, to start with, its limited access to finance and credit. Most of these women, they face a challenge because of the issue of collateral, and also a lack of knowledge on itself to know which financial institution is issuing out loans to start with. Then secondly, the issue of collateral. And thirdly, to compile the list that is actually needed by the financier to finance them. And further to this, they've got challenges on lack of representation in leadership positions. You know, some of these issues, the women issues, are best articulated by women themselves. So in the leadership positions, there is lack of representation. However, in our country, we've got what we call a quota system. But now, we are speaking, we've got lack of knowledge of whom can educate the women associations on this leadership position. And then further, this is a male-dominated sector. So women face a lot of gender-based violence and harassment because you find out that in one district or one segment, you will see that there'll be 90% are male and 10% are only women. So you know how it is if we are being overpowered. And then they've got also limited access to training and capacity building programs. Most of these mining communities are in remote areas. So they've got limited access, like, for example, Zimbabwe School of Mines, to access capacity building trainings because of maybe lack of information to reach where they are due to internet connectivities. Next slide. Now, our role, based on our topic of multilateral drivers in empowering ASM, we need to provide financial support and resources. We need to partner with financial institutions so that they understand the marginalized group, the women in mining. What are their needs? And they offer maybe like group funding, crowdfunding. They also, we need to promote the policy. We have got the gender policy. We need to promote it and educate the women in the mining sector. We also need to support capacity building and training. We take the trainers to the remote areas where the ASM is happening. Then also we need to encourage the private sector investment and partnerships between big mines or medium scale mines within the communities, and they partner with these ASM workers. At least if we do this, we are driving towards empowering women. These, we take them as solutions towards the challenges that we have highlighted. Next slide.
And if we just wrap up in the next minute or so.
Okay. Once we empower these, once we drive these, then we are saying that women are now benefiting in the ASM. And what are the benefits? It's increased economic growth, increased GDP, improved standards of living, poverty reduction, and also social inclusiveness and promoting gender equality and gender governance, and more effective and sustainable mining practices. Next slide. In conclusion, we are saying that let's empower these women, because ASM is a critical sector, like I've highlighted in my introduction, in my introductory, to say it's contributing significantly in Zimbabwe. So let's provide these women with economic opportunities. Let's promote social inclusiveness. Let's address challenges. Let's unlock any potential opportunity that we see in the ASM sector and contribute more to prosperous future for all Zimbabweans. The last slide. Call of action to everyone. Let's work together to empower women in the ASM sector and unlock the potential of Zimbabwean mining industry. This call is towards the civil society organizations, the government, the ASM associations. This is a challenge that I'm actually leaving to you to say, let's act, let's call for an action. Thank you. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you so much, Kundai, for that powerful presentation on the women in ASM, especially in Zimbabwe, but I think it cuts across all women in ASM all over the world. Let me just give, if there is any, just one, two questions for clarification. If anyone has a question there. Hmm. Okay. I think, okay, Kundai, maybe if you can just ask what type, you spoke about providing training for women. Maybe what type of training or support do you think will best fit, or do women need, especially in the rural areas? What type of training, maybe?
Okay, the training that they need mostly is resource identification. Most of these women, they mine blindly. They just like say, okay, there's a mine, there are coordinates that are there, then they mine blindly. If they can be provided the training on resource identification, we promote the technocrats go down there to the rural communities where the mining activities are happening and promote.
Mm. That's very important. Thank you so much, Kundai. So now we move on to the next presenter, who is um, yeah, my apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Kotatso Nel, wow, Lengetwa from Imbokodo Mining Services in South Africa, and he will talk about defining clear distinctions in the heterogeneous artisanal and small-scale mining sector of South Africa, possibilities for partial formalization. Your chance.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you are in the world. And just for clarity, I just want you to know, don't feel bad. Everybody finds it hard to pronounce my name. It's actually Khotatso Ntlengetwa. Thank you very much for affording me this opportunity. Okay. Well, so today the title of my presentation has already been discussed, and I think many of you may know and some stories about what we call Zamazama miners here in South Africa, and we aim really to see what we can do to aid the sector of South Africa into formalization. So the background of ASM is really something that speaks to artisanal and small scale mining. It's nothing that's really quite new, but one thing most people don't realize is that ASM actually came before large scale mining, and usually large scale mining is preceded by artisanal miners who discover the actual mineral. And so even what we know as the gold fields here in South Africa were actually first started in 1886 by panning, which is a form of artisanal and small scale mining. There is no global definitions, and it really depends on where you go, what book you read, which report you go and delve into, but in which country or region you go to. But they're really different definitions. So I have put up a few definitions to come up with them, and I'm not going to read them word for word, but this is just basically to show you that the different definitions highlights different aspects of artisanal and small scale mining. So, um, more than anything, the majority of artisanal and small scale mining is really labor intensive, technology poor, and also you find that it's low paying, and sometimes people say it's extremely hazardous, but we've seen in cases here in South Africa on some of our projects that there are participants of ASM who are actually trying to become safer. And I just went into this. I just want to highlight from this slide that it's low development index countries. So it's not just found in Africa, but across Asia and South America. And another misconception is that people who are in the ASM sector are basically uneducated. And we often find that, especially in South Africa, it ranges to those who are formally educated as well. I think this speaks for itself. I think We've seen that there's poverty, child labor also happens. It's low capital, not because they want to not have capital, but because there's just no means to have that capital. And I think the previous speaker did mention when she answered the question that the lack of knowing the geology and having some sort of mine planning really does play a big part in the general characteristics of ASM. But also something interesting is that we are finding that there's indigenous knowledge systems. So a rock that, as a geologist, I might call a conglomerate, they call it another name, but they know that it's the rock that hosts the gold. So those were the general characteristics. Now let's zoom into South Africa. So it is recognized in South Africa by what's called the MPRDA, which stands for the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act of 2002. Although currently this year it just went out for public comment and it just closed, there is a bill that's being amended which speaks to artisanal mining. And then in section 27, there is small scale mining, but it's very, very limited and is not nearly enough of regulation for the sector. The permit is valid for 2 to 3 years and it can be renewed for 3 periods, but it cannot exceed more than 1 year each period of renewal. And like I said, although Section 27 speaks to small scale mining, it does not speak to artisanal mining.
That's if you can just wrap up also, try to wrap up in the next minute. So.
Okay, I think let me move on to the most important thing. I didn't know how much time frame I have, so the last slide I think I'll leave it here for now is that the unique nature of ASM in South Africa makes it difficult feat. Zamazama mining is an additional reason why formalization is such a challenge. Now, the difference here, I just want to say there is a difference between artisanal mining and Zamazama mining in South Africa, because in South Africa, artisanal mining is community based, while Zamazama mining is syndicate based. So we propose that if we formalize the artisanal mining sector, then you can be able to move those people who are being exploited in the syndicate-based sector who want to be legal into the formal artisanal mining sector. And I think that's the crux of this presentation, that everybody understands that there is that major difference between those who are in the syndicate-based who go underground and those who are mining tailings or who are mining community-based on surface. And those are the ones that we want to formalize in South Africa. I think I'll end it there for now. And I'd just like to add here, if anybody wants to have this presentation, I'm willing to give access to that through the resource forum. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Hotatso. That was powerful. And it is true that ASM is unique in countries, in areas, and it's the complication is really changes, or it really differs from place to place. Maybe let me just give it a chance if there's anyone who wants to ask a clarifying question at this point. Or maybe while they're coming, just to think, since you are saying you think the best that a government can do is to do that partial formalization. Maybe what are the incentives that the government can provide to promote formalization, to promote the informal ASM into getting it, to wanting to formalize the operation? What are the incentives that maybe the government can provide?
I think one of the key things the government can provide is provide something. There's something unique in South Africa called a stokvel, which is basically where people put in all their money and at the end of the year they separate. So if the government can create something like that for artisanal mining associations, where they say, okay, we will subsidize you if you save 60% of the money or 70% of the money, we will subsidize you with 30% to get machinery. And we will train you to upkeep that machinery, because that's also important. So that it's a united approach, and it's not that the capital isn't there. The capital is there. It's just the way that we approach and how we collaborate to use the capital that the government has.
Okay. There is a question also. Rebecca, are you able to read it? I think. Okay. There's a question that says, can you please give us an idea of the size of ASGM production figure in South Africa? Zamazam accepted. Like if I think at some small scale in small scale gold mining. If you
Yes.
have maybe the idea of the size.
Yes. So currently in South Africa, artisanal and small scale gold mining, that is regarded as illegal. So right now everything is illegal. So this includes what we call artisanal miners and the syndicate-based Amazon miners. Everything altogether is estimated to be in anything between 250,000 to 600,000. Why that is so broad is because of the underground nature and very illicit form of mining that is Zamazama mining. So those numbers are very hard to pinpoint, because at any given time you're not even too sure how many go underground. But when we go, for example, to these artisanal mining sites, we can then give numbers to those miners. But unfortunately, the whole ASGM sector, we can't. But with regards to those, we've got about 20,000 of them that have been estimated to be in specifically artisanal mining on the surface, mining tailings, or mining gold on surface.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So thank you. Okay, our next presenter is Gideon Ofosupasa, he's from Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime in Ghana. He will talk about smuggling and illicit financial flows from artisanal and small-scale mining in selected West African countries.
Hi,
Gideon?
everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So thank you. I work for the Global Initiative. We are based in Geneva, Switzerland. And then we are a network which has been set up to disrupt organized crime networks. We cover a whole range of illicit economies, arms trafficking, human trafficking, etc., etc. And then I work for the extractive thematic area, and then also for the West Africa um, Observatory of Illicit Economies. This morning, I want to share with you a study that we did in the Mano River Union region. And then with the Mano River Union region, it is a sub-region within the ECOWAS sub-region. So that is Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, and then Guinea. And then we looked at the illicit gold flows and then financial flows. And briefly, when you talk about illicit financial flows, we are looking at financial leakages that deprive governments of the revenue. They can weaken governance and often fuel insecurity and then criminal networks. So we have example, the smuggling of gold, tax evasion, money laundering, corruption, bribery, etc., etc. So we know that the benefits of artisanal small-scale gold and diamond mining has huge developmental potentials. But we realize that illicit financial flows is a key obstacle to nations realizing its developmental potential. Now, with illicit financial flows related to artisanal and small-scale gold mining, we often find out that profits can be reinvested into mining or buying of gold. What it means is that, for instance, someone who is involved in the sales of counterfeit drugs, for instance, can also be investing into artisanal and small-scale gold mining, either by mining or by buying, and then the proceeds can feed into the illicit counterfeit sales of drugs, and then that money can also feed into mining. So it becomes like a cycle. Another nature that we have identified is that financial flows begin even before the gold leaves the ground, which makes it difficult to track. What it means is that where the money is coming from determines where the gold will be going eventually. So what we sought to do was to map out some practices and smuggling routes for gold and diamonds in the Mano River Union, identify the illicit actors who may be involved, and then how they operate, and then also to provide some actionable recommendations that we can use to reduce illicit financial flows. So in 2023, we conducted a study in the Mano River Union. We included Bamako, Mali, which is not a Mano River Union country, but we realized that it is a key hub for gold flows. We did a desk study. We reviewed over 100 report journal articles and news sources. We did key informal interviews with various stakeholders, government, private sector actors, civil society, over 37 of them. And then there is a framework that we have built, the Global Initiative on Illicit Financial Flows, which guides us in our investigation. And then we leverage on the in-house team expertise of the Global Initiative. So what did we find on supply chains? We found that on gold is a major source of illicit financial flows. And then apart from Guinea, the Mano River Union countries estimated that at least approximately 80% of the gold that is mined within those countries are lost. And for diamond, it was comparatively lower, about 20 to 40%. Why? Because the sector, diamond is much more regulated and formalized because of the stronger Kimberley process certification scheme regulations, also because of depleting diamond deposits in the Mano River Union region, and then also a surge in artisanal gold mining and small-scale gold mining in the last 10 to 15 years. That was accounting for why gold was a major illicit financial was a major source of ISFs, and then such huge volumes of gold were living out. Regarding the actors, from the figure that you can see, you realize that right from the mine sites, the local level, national level to international market, there are various actors, and then they are playing several roles in there. So at the local level, for instance, you have miners or the landowners who are acting as who extract gold. The landowners usually have the right of first refusal to buy the gold or not. And we also have those who are operators who may be licensed or who may be unlicensed. We also have buyers or brokers. They also purchase at mine sites. And then again, depending on who is financing them, also becomes a challenge, because you realize that there are no little to no formal financing schemes to provide for stakeholders in the value chain. So they are open to all sorts of dirty money from anywhere. We also have the exporters or dealers. They serve as aggregators. They export the goods, and then they usually sell to foreign buyers who usually would want to circumvent formal processes to smuggle the gold. We also have beneficial owners, so the landowners, the traditional leaders, the political actors, some security actors who may people may see that they are playing neutral roles, but they might be beneficial owners, and then of all those illegalities that is happening, and then all that. We also have a key role that law enforcement is playing. They are sent by governments to probably to enforce the law, but they go and then you realize that they also become complicit, because miners or the stakeholders are able to pay them, they extort money, they take illegal taxes, that sort of thing. And then we also have foreign
wrap up in the next minute
buyers who smuggle gold. So these are some key actors that we found in there. So there are several findings on drivers of gold smuggling. We realize that the gold prices, when gold prices are high, it influences how do you call it, smuggling, the proximity of where the gold is mined, where it is sold, all those sort of things can influence smuggling. On recommendations, there are three key things. We have recommendations around artisanal, the formalization of the sector, where we have various items under that, providing financial incentives, having decentralized offices, that sort of thing. Also, we are saying that the Mano River Union should provide some leadership in having a coordinated strategy. Issues around fiscal regimes, enforcement should be done, and then also some community engagements. Thank you very much. So you can reach out to us if there is more that you want to learn on the topic. That is my email. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gideon. That was insightful. We don't have a question, but I would just like to follow up on when you said we need community engagement. Just to take us to a reality, how does smuggling really hurt the local communities? What are the negative impacts?
Okay. So you realize that it has very significant developmental impact, because these are minerals which hitherto should be taxed, that can be used for developmental projects in the country, and then also that local communities can also be a beneficiary. So it's hurts them there. And then also we realize that when we have gold smuggling linked with illicit activities in the mining sector, there are also various organized crime activities that are linked to it at the local level. So for instance, we are seeing the drug trafficking, the peddling of drugs, human trafficking for sexual sexual exploitation, increase in vices, armed robbery, that sort of thing are all linked to that, which hurts the local economy very well. And not to talk of the environmental impacts, pollution crimes, and then all those things linked to that. So this is some few examples of some local impacts of smuggling.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gideon. Our next presenter is Laura Ani from Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies in Nigeria, and she will talk about artisanal and small-scale mining formalization in West Africa, a comparative analysis of sustainability outcomes. Laura?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, can be fantastic. Okay, yes. My name is Laura Ani. As I said, I'm a senior research fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, and I'm also a thematic lead of the mining thematic lead of the Industrial Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. So I'm going to be talking about artisanal small-scale mining formalization in West Africa, focusing on Ghana and Nigeria. Now, formalization for me is not an end in itself. For too long, we've treated it as a kind of checkbox exercise. That is a matter of policies and permits. So my comparative analysis will show that the strategies which truly deliver sustainable outcomes are those that see formalization as a tool for empowerment and integration. It's about creating pathways that are accessible and recognize the unique context of each community. Thank you. Can we just move to the next slide? Just a little bit of information. Next slide, please. Now, forgive me, my slides are very wordy. As a legal researcher, I tend to do a lot of writing. Now, the ASM sector embodies a critical developmental paradox. It sustains vital livelihoods while simultaneously generating profound socio-ecological crisis. This duality constitutes one of the most complex governance challenges across resource-dependent economies. And the epicenter of this is in Africa, a continent that is also underpinned geologically by the mineral-rich West African craton, spanning Ghana, Mali, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Senegal, and even Mauritania, which collectively account for 10.8% of global gold production. And Ghana exemplifies regional preeminence, with its gold sector producing 31.0 metric tons of gold as of the first quarter of 2025. By contrast, Nigeria's mineral economy derives from non-cratonic geology, encompassing over 40 different minerals, consisting of industrial minerals, metallic minerals, and energy minerals. And interestingly, Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, Libya, and I think South Africa produced more than 2/3 of the mining sector's mineral wealth. However, Nigeria's mining sector contributes less than 1% to GDP, with 80% of miners operating illegally in the northern parts of Nigeria. Now, I like to state that Nigeria, despite producing greater gold production resources than Burkina Faso and the DRC, the nation paradoxically exhibits the lowest gold production within sub-Saharan Africa. Also, Ghana has a profound extralegal mining operations, which is termed as the galamsey. A 2025 BBC report said that 90% of miners lack the required mining licenses. So therefore, the research question is, how does the interplay between multilateral frameworks, national laws, and community participation influence the effectiveness and equity of ASM formalization in achieving sustainable development outcomes across three pillars: environmental, economic, and social? Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, these are the methods I've used. Now, the research employs a case-oriented comparative analysis of Ghana and Nigeria, selected for their strategic contrast within West Africa. These cases enable a critical evaluation of ASM formalization efficacy in achieving these three outcomes. Now, the documentary-based approach is a robust method to synthesize knowledge and analyze complex governance structures within a feasible framework. Now, data was gathered through a critical review of existing documents from academic, legal frameworks, NGO reports, and industry sources, and these sources were triangulated to ensure a robust and multifaceted evidence base. However, whilst I acknowledge that the methodology may not fully capture the dynamics of ASM or the lived experience of communities, because these are not ethnographic researches or interview-based. They are desktop research studies. But a rigorous comparative desktop review was conducted using systemic search strategies and critical evaluations to provide insight into a very complex policy space. So what is the aim of this research? This analysis evaluates the effectiveness of formalization in Ghana and Nigeria's artisanal small-scale mining sectors using 3 key pillars: environmental, economic, and social. So I want to evaluate how effective our formalization laws, policies ensure that we have brought more miners into the regulatory space. So this research offers a significant contribution to understanding the role of multilateral governance frameworks in promoting ASM formalization within West African mining sector. And we propose a new social contract for formalization in the regions. Next slide, please. Thank you. Excuse me. Now, this is basically the argument of this research, and I put in the stylized flow chart. It's essentially the framework demonstrates how multilateral instruments require multi-level networks to advance sustainable ASM formalization, while highlighting the critical feedback mechanisms that shape governance effectiveness. Now, the circular structure, you can see, shows the iterative nature of regulatory improvement. So whilst formalization holds potential benefits, such as improved working conditions and enhanced environmental safeguards, its success is contingent upon critical enabling factors. These are community participation, monitoring, and enforcement at subnational levels. This will shape the nature and outcome of formalization. Now, I want to state that whilst multilateralism establishes necessary governance scaffolding, for instance, the Minamata Convention, which is done through national action plans, is one of the most direct drivers of formalization globally. But there are several blind spots, and ultimate efficacy remains contingent upon indigenous factors. For instance, the state-centric bias that assumes states monopolize authority, design institutions, enforce rules, or are the central unit of analysis, marginalizes non-state actors, that is the communities. So we have to understand that the network of actors, to include communities, miners themselves, can shape governance from a non-rational component. This explains why top-down institutional reforms fail. So without non-internalization, rules like licensing will become empty shells. So the value of multilateralism derives its utility in advancing national interests, not from ideological commitments to cooperation. So I believe that if this is all done, we can achieve SDG outcomes. So the next slide, please.
And you can just wrap up in the next minute, Laura.
Okay, then I have to go to the last slide then. Sorry, that's a lot. Okay, there are 7 slides. So the last 2 slides, really, I had to go through each of the sustainability outcomes, and I had to compare them with Nigeria and Ghana. And these are the findings from my comparative analysis. I say in both countries, illegal mining persists due to under-resourced regulatory agencies. While both countries have domestic legal frameworks and are signatories to multilateral treaties to mitigate ecological damage, ineffective monitoring and institutional gaps have led to widespread environmental degradation, threatening forests, water bodies, and public health. Governance must go beyond token consultations to genuine co-management with communities, where mining cooperatives, traditional leaders, and local governments jointly oversee land use, environmental monitoring, and benefit sharing. So I think the persistent criminalization of informal miners has proven effective, as we can see in Ghana's task force and even in Nigeria. They continue to drive miners underground while failing to address environmental degradation. So a more sustainable solution lies in recognizing ASM as a legitimate economic sector, where miners operate not merely as subsistence laborers, but as entrepreneurs requiring structured support. Therefore, governments must provide clear, affordable, and accessible pathways to formalization. That is through technical training, access to clean technologies, even finance, and even alternative livelihoods. Finally, on the international stage, the effectiveness of governance in mitigating mining-related environmental degradation hinges on the integration of multilateral frameworks into national policies. However, their success depends on domestic enforcement, institutional coordination, and local stakeholder engagement. To align these with these international commitments and ensure mining delivers transformative benefits for affected communities, subnational governments should be empowered to legislate enforceable frameworks that institutionalize free, prior, and informed consent protocols and community participation, aligning with the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development and United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, to ensure indigenous rights are safeguarded through locally tailored binding protocols. So I think the decentralization authority will enable regions to address unique cultural, ecological contexts while aligning with global human rights standards. Thank you. Sorry, I had to jump to the last slide.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was very informative. Laura, maybe just to say, since you're talking about the under-resourced, the regulatory authorities are under-resourced, and you see the importance of having multi-stakeholder governance to ASM. I'm just saying, what do you think is the role of decentralizing government institutions to remote or local authorities or local areas? Do you think decentralization can also add to the effectiveness of formalization?
Thank you very much for your question. Right now, in both countries, especially in Nigeria, everything is at the federal government level, is centralized. And when there is centralization, there's a bit of a distance from the federal government to the state governments. I mean, the federal government doesn't understand the lived realities of communities, and it is best the state governments can have the responsibilities to manage resources. But the frameworks right now, the Constitution and even the Mining Act, strictly gives the ownership, management, and control resources to the federal government. So it's about time that states are allowed to control and manage. So because for instance, at the federal level, if licenses are granted at the federal level, the states can't really veto or say whether they want or not. They can only grant consent to the land. So if states can regulate to an extent or share in resource, it's what you call natural resource federalism, able to share concurrently, then of course they can be able to manage the environmental issues. For instance, what happened in Nigeria last year in 2024, several issues. In 2024, there was a massive explosion in Ibadan, in the Oyo State part of Western Nigeria. And that was because miners were using explosives. And the state government wasn't really aware of these sorts of things. So the state government has said that if they're able to regulate as well, then they can be able to monitor miners. But right now, their powers are limited. And if they can monitor, that means the local communities, local government and the community can also co-create and co-manage as well. So it's important we decentralize and allow some power, some co-sharing at the subnational level. That way you can effectively manage resource governance, so to speak. Thank you.
I agree with you, Laura. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very passionate presentation. So we move on to the next presenter, who is Hernandi Octaviano from the University of Queensland in Australia. And Hernandi will talk about the forgotten sector, a narrative review of environmental governance and policy development in artisanal and small-scale sand mining in Indonesia. Hernandi.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Johanna. My name is Hernandi. I'm one of a PhD student in University of Queensland, along with Johanna. And while everybody's talking about a valuable mineral, I'm here talking about the most low value mineral in probably the world called sand. So this is a part of my PhD thesis called the Forgotten Sector: Narrative Review of Environmental Governance and Policy Development in ISSM in Indonesia. And because I like to read about history, so I would like to take this as a part of my PhD journey as well. So this is the importance of sand, and sand is vital for Indonesia's development, especially constructions. As you can see that this sand makes up almost 10% of construction makes up almost 10% of GDP. And in 2022, the country produced 60 million cubic meters of sand. And the country also...
cannot... Oh, okay. Yeah, you can continue. Like it. I couldn't hear you, but I think you can continue. Looks like it's my internet. So.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah, okay, good. Sorry. So and sand production is worth of $295 million, and 94% of it came from artisanal and small scale sand mining, or ISSM. They show that the ISSM potential is huge but overlooked in the economical world. While beyond regulatory, ISSM also faces a deeper issue like perceptions. So government see this sector as inefficient, economically insignificant, and short-term revenue focus. while NGOs also view SSM activities as disruptive, creating conflicts with farmers who blame miners for local disruptions. But where is these perceptions and narrative coming from? And to answer these questions, I look back the history of ISSM or ISM and sand mining as a commodity back from the first regulations of mining to understand what is the definitions of ISSM or ISM based on the government perspective. So we can create an equilibrium definitions because some of us already know the information, the definitions from the international definitions, but what are the definitions from the government itself? So before 1945, Dutch colonial mainly focused on the tin and coal, and sand, in contrast, was vital for roads and harbors, but remained invisible in law. So it can be freely extracted either by prisoners or peasants, or everybody can extract it. In colonial records, sand was often mentioned not as a resource, but as a hazard. So it was mapped as a hazard as a sandbank that can create destructions for the ships, and it was mapped to warn ships of grounding risk. And these perceptions of sand as abundant and low value laid the foundations for the later neglect in the governments. So, and then for the ISM in colonial records is informally acknowledged. So it mentions in the regulations, but it informally acknowledged. It means that they don't need regulation, they don't need permits to do their activity unless it was for valuable minerals like diamonds. So there was no safety, there was no environmental supervisions, and sand is also absent from the records. So post-independence of Indonesia between 1945 and 1998, Indonesia reclaimed the control of its resources, and Indonesia classified its mineral to become strategic, vital, and others. As we know that sand will always be classified in the low value and it classified in the other. While for ISM, this is the first regulations that provide formal recognitions for ISM called people's mining. It's defined as a small-scale livelihood mining with simple tools across all commodity and categories. And ISM productions is poorly recorded and its activity is difficult to trace. The same as the New Order era. So we have a lot of similarity between the 1945 and 1967. In the 1967, people mining permit were allowed, but tightly limited in size and durations. And in practice, regulations are still centered on revenue-rich minerals, and sand is still remain marginalized and weakly governed. So, in the Reformations era, after 1998, there has been a lot of changes in Indonesia. So, ISM called people's mining, defined as a small-scale mining with local communities with limited area and investment. So, there has been a change in here. The first one, the definitions is about they are fulfilling their basic needs, and now it changes into investment and limited area, which means that government sees this people's mining permit or ISM as a taxpayer or as someone that can provide state income, because all of this mining company, they give a lot of mining income. But the good thing is that this small scale miner, they can mine, and the government, they guarantee the miners in a certain kind of area. So they decide the people's mining area where small scale mining can operate. However, only several minerals that can be mined by this ISM, such as metallic minerals, non-metallic minerals, and rocks and stones. So radioactive and coal is not allowed by the artisanal small-scale mining. Yet, despite all details, ISSM, especially in rivers, remain overlooked. It treated simply as open pit mining, with no specific safety or environmental standards. Policy space goes to big concessions, leaving sand miners legally recognized, but still marginalized in practice. So a lot of regulations in here only deal with the open pit or underground, where river mining, there has been no standard.
Henandi,
So,
if you can wrap up in the next minute.
okay, so this is the productions of Indonesian's mining commodity. As we know here, sand has been the first and the second productions in the country, and all of these regulations has been changed, has been shifted, but ISSM has not been changed. It's still being overlooked. It's still being said as a criminal or something like that. So looking back, we see shifting attention of Sen. In the colonial era, we see Sen vital but invincible. We move to new order. We move to the older recognitions were neglected, and then we move to new order. Sen still sidelines. And today, ISSN is visible in law but invisible in practice. So we can see that these regulations is not is written because of the state needs income and written due to the closeness of the valuable mineral and strategic mineral like gold and tin and copper and coal. So looking to the future, governance must shift from neglect to inclusions, recognizing where these perceptions come from and building co-designed rules that give miners, local government, and academics role in sustainable sand management. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Henandi. That's you spoke about really it is in a forgotten sector, and it's the same in Namibia. We don't have we have been seeing it, and I think in many countries we're seeing it, that sand has been missing, sand and aggregates and all that what are regarded as low value minerals. They are missing or in the policies and in the laws. But as you're saying, now you say the visible, now it is visible in law, but invisible in practice. So what do you think really should be done for governments to start recognizing sand other, I would say, development minerals in policy, especially sand? What do you think should be done for governments to start recognizing that it should be part of the policy?
Okay, thank you very much, Johanna. Very good questions. I think that we should be aware of the economic implications to the miners first, which means that at the moment, government only see what can ISM or ISSM provide for the government, state income or tax or royalty. While we can see that this is not about tax, this is not about royalty, this is about giving local people a new income source that can provide their livelihood better than they can go to the city, better than they can go to other places. They can build their places here. So besides the government that should realize, international organizations also should realize that ISM is not only for valuable minerals like tin or gold, because they're mostly focusing on gold and tin, while this sector has been neglected for a long time. A lot of guidelines on how to do good mining practice in ISGM or in tin mining. But what about sand mining in the river? We have never seen these guidelines before. So what we need is now a collaborations between international agency, government, and academics. So they should create some kind of cooperations, and they should acknowledge this ISSM, and they should create a knowledge on river management or river mining in the ISSM.
Thank you so much, Hernandi. And really just to, again, to emphasize your point that we should think that we need sand every day. Sand is building our houses, sand is building our roads, sand it's needed in the energy transition to build all the infrastructure. So it's really something that the governments and all stakeholders really need to start paying attention to and really integrate it in the policies and the laws. Thank you so much, Hernandi. Okay, it's 12 p.m. now in Central Eastern Standard Time, which is the official end of our session. We were hoping that we'll still get Faith to come and present, or Gideon and Laura to answer some of the questions, but looks like maybe they are not here anymore. So I think we'll have to end our presentations here. And I would just like to thank you all for your valuable contributions to today's session on artisanal and small-scale mining. We have explored the complex realities of ASM and discussed some of the promising pathways towards sustainability and equity. So as we conclude, let us apply these insights to shape new resource strategies that are fair, inclusive, and environmentally responsible. ASM must be part of the conversation if we are to build a truly fair and sustainable future. So I encourage you to continue these discussions beyond this room, to collaborate across sectors and borders, and to keep the voices of ASM communities at the heart of our work. And again, I just say, give a hello to our artisan and small scale miners in Zimbabwe. Okay, thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.